Hi, best friends. I'm Tabby.
And I'm Caitlin, and today we will be discussing The Kiss Curse by Rachel Hawkins from the same room because
Because
Tabby
we're
is
together.
right next to her.
I feel like we're on an NPR episode sometimes, like the way we start that off, like, and welcome
It's very like
to Best Friends Book Club.
we're so like rehearsed about
I
it. Like maybe
know.
we
We're
could just
very
start switching it up.
no.
No,
We're so
okay.
professional. Um, so the Kiss Curse was very surprisingly decent.
Hmm.
Like I was thrilled that it didn't
Yeah,
suck.
because you guys know we weren't big fans of the
I
XX.
wasn't vibing with it.
Let me go ahead and read the back of the book. It says, Gwen Jones is perfectly happy with her life in Graves Glen. She, her mom, and her cousin have formed a new and powerful coven. She's running a successful witchcraft shop, something wicked, and she started mentoring some of the younger witches in town. As Halloween approaches, there's only one problem. Llewellyn Wells Penhallow. Wells has come to Graves Glen to reestablish his family's connection to the town they founded, as well as to make a new life for himself after years of being the dutiful son in Wales. When he opens up a shop of his own, Penhallows, just across the street from Something Wicked, he quickly learns he's gotten more than he bargained for in going up against Gwen. When their professional competition leads to a very personal and very hot kiss, both Wells and Gwen are determined to stay away from each other, convinced the kiss was just a magical fluke. But when a mysterious new coven of witches come to town and Gwen's powers begin fading, she and Wells must work together to figure out just what these new witches want and how to restore Gwen's magic before it's too late.
I feel like once again, like the little blurb there is like a little misleading because a lot of that happens in the first like 25% of the book and then like nothing else after that. It's like very disjointed almost. Like it jumps around a lot and like you kind of forget like where you
like
are.
what the main problem is, because like that describing, oh yeah, her power's fading or whatever, they're not like super focused on that, even though I agree they should be. Yeah. Until like her power's like gone, and they're like, oh fuck, like we need to figure this out.
Well, and it's like even with the whole like rivals thing, like they're really only rivals for about 30 seconds and then
they kiss and they're like, oh god.
Yeah. And so it's like I wouldn't even call it like, I mean, I guess it is rivals to lovers, but like they gave in like fast.
Yeah. It wasn't like drawn out. It wasn't a slow burn. And that is for me kind of bordering a little bit on insta love, which I'm not a big fan of. And so that was kind of pushing it a little bit for me.
Like he was down bad pretty much instantly.
Yeah.
What would you rate this book?
So I would rate it like an 8 out of 10 because for me, I liked it better than the first book, but it's still not like my favorite thing I've ever read.
Yeah, I would say kind of the same thing. I gave it like an 8.13. It was good. It was cute.
It was.
It just like, it felt very rushed. I feel like rom-coms feel like they can only be like 300 pages or less, which I kind of get. Like you don't want to, like you're not reading those to like read a full novel, but also I think you could have taken like a little more time to explain things.
Yeah, because you're trying to crunch a lot into this book. Like a lot happens, but not a lot happens.
Yeah. There's no detail.
Yeah, that's the thing is we're just like zooming through the
like this happened. Stuff. You don't need to worry about it. Just know it happened.
Just know that it happened and it went okay.
And we fixed it.
And everything's fine. So let's talk about the characters.
Okay.
We'll start with Gwen.
So I did like her more in this book. I thought she was very funny. My biggest bone to pick, I think, with her though, is that like she keeps saying like I'm allergic to responsibility. Oh, I don't love people. Like that's just not who I am. Like I could never see myself in a relationship. And then does all of those things like pretty much simultaneously. She's like, I don't want to mentor these witches. And then she's like, just kidding. Come on, girls. Like hop in my little witch van and we're going to go do some spells. And she does a bang up job. And she's amazing. And then like, well, she was like, I could never fall in love with this, like a man. And then lo and behold, she's making out with him almost immediately. And then they love each other. And so it's like, I think if we again had taken just a little more time to develop like that growth, it would have hit a lot better. But it almost just felt like she's like, I don't do anything because I'm cool, and then does them anyway.
That's how I felt too in the first book about her character. Is we were just trying too hard to make her like too cool for
a girl boss,
like yeah. girl boss, pussy power, which she is all of that, but like let's make her like more human. Like
she's a person.
Yeah, wasn't very well rounded at all in the first book. She's a little more fleshed out obviously in this book because it's her own story, but still there's just like you're not emotionally invested still in these characters.
Yeah.
I did feel more like I cared about what happened to them than in the first book, but I still didn't feel like attached.
I think I liked her so much just because of that. Not even because of her relationship with Wells, which I thought was cute. I loved her mentor relationship that she had with the baby witches.
That was
like
cute.
That was probably the most like redeeming quality about her.
Yeah, I agree. That was cute. She is also just very funny too, which makes her likable. And let's talk about Wells.
I loved Wells.
He's like, I really was immediately drawn to. Well, I liked it though, because I was like, he's kind of an asshole.
No, like in the first book?
Oh, in the first
book, like, I was like, God, this dude, like, is a dick. Like, he sucks.
Yeah. No, I kind of liked that, like, right from the get-go, when he showed up in Graves Glen, and he was like, he showed up at the house that his family owns, and Gwen was in there, like, having a party. That was so funny to me. Like, I just loved the dynamic immediately. I was like, oh, he's kind of grumpy, and like, he didn't really stay super grumpy though. Like he
even says like that's just like a facade he puts on. Like he's not actually like he's an asshole, but he's not.
Yeah, for sure. I just liked him more than Reese.
Reese was just annoying and very immature, and like I don't know. I didn't even like his like little scenes he had like in this book either. Like he just is an instigator. Like he just picks at people constantly. He's very much a little brother. Like
which I think that's kind of a fun like sibling dynamic, but for a romantic interest, it like makes me not interested in him.
I feel like I'd have to babysit you constantly.
Yeah, exactly. Because it just makes you think of like a little sibling, and it's like, that's not attractive.
No, I don't want to take care of you.
Wasn't attached to him.
No, I did like his inner monologues that he had, and like he was very charming, and I love that he came in, he's like, I'm gonna build an even better store than what you've got going on here, and it's gonna be awesome. And then when it comes to like the very first week of like their busy season, he's like, I've made a terrible mistake.
I feel like he's kind of got this confidence that maybe a little bit too much confidence, because he was kind of their father's favorite, and I think he's just got like this he's not arrogant.
He has a first child complex.
Yeah, he just like very much thinks like, oh yeah, I can do anything and everything, no problem. Like
because their dad was like, you gotta do this, you can do anything. And so he's like, hell yeah, I can.
I know. And I think like he starts to realize it for sure in this book. Like, and I think he even was kind of aware of it in Wales, because that bar was just like failing miserably, and he was like, man, I'm not really like doing anything impressive or meaningful. And so that's why he was so keen to move to Graves Glen and like try to do something.
And like I think towards the end too, like his relationship with his brothers was like, you got to see that a little bit more, because Reese is like so very detached from his family. Like he loves them, but I don't think he truly like has that relationship like Wells does, because Wells is the oldest brother, and so he feels very responsible for his younger siblings. And so I loved how he interacted so differently with Reese and Bowen, and like you got to see that dynamic a little more.
Yeah, gosh, Bowen's
something else.
He kind of intrigues me.
I know, he's like out here just living a life of like solitude. When he pops into his cabin, he's like, what the hell is going on in here? Like he has like magical weapons and like every ingredient known to man, and he's like over here making like these like super complex like spells and everything, and he's like, holy shit, like what did they assign you to do here?
He is so interesting to me. And I also just think it's funny, like even at the very beginning of the book, Bowen just kind of like pops in really quick to talk to Wells, like before Wells has moved to Graves Glen, and he's just like, hey, I just came to say this one thing, and then just like poofs away. Yeah. And I just think that's hilarious. Like Wells didn't even like say goodbye, and he was just like gone.
Okay. Man of few words. Man of very few words.
Honestly, I'm kind of like into it.
I know. Well, I like that he kind of like alluded to the next book because he's like, oh, I get these trinkets here and there, mostly from like these people who deal in like magical objects. They like to sell them, and that was what that lady does in the first book. And so it's like, oh, okay,
Tamantha or whatever the fuck her name is.
Her name?
I don't know. It's something
Tamantha.
stupid. I feel like it's something stupid.
It was like Tasman or something.
That's still stupid.
Tamantha.
I can't remember.
I don't even care that much. We're not going to read it.
But also this book were the baby witches.
I loved them.
They're such a cute little squad. I thought it was
cute.
so funny that they call Gwen Glinda. They're like, you're a
just
good
like
witch.
little puppies.
I know. I love that. And they're honestly like, she can rely on them. They come through
Yes.
for her.
And I just think it's funny because these are college kids. Like, they are adults. And
we're like,
oh,
oh,
we're like, oh, these little babies.
I mean, I guess Gwen, how old is Gwen?
She's like
probably
30
like
something.
30. So yeah, like think about that.
She's
like
kind of a mother figure.
I already am at the age where I start to feel like college kids are kind of babies.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
In like a sweet way, not like, ew, you're babies, but like, aw, like little
You're
sibling
so
energy.
Yeah.
So it just makes them feel like very like they need to be mentored, which is exactly what she was doing.
No, and I love that, like, anytime they messed up, Gwen was like, I'm not going to yell at you, but like, what the fuck was that? And so, like, whenever they figured out that it was Wells' like ring that was taking all the power from Gwen, they were like, we'll fight you, like, right here, right now.
Yeah.
Like, you better square the fuck up. And
they're like, we didn't even like you that much anyway.
Yeah, like, you kind of suck, but like, now I really hate you. But then whenever they figure out, like, Gwen's been kidnapped, they're like, we didn't know who else to turn to, and also, why are we in a mountain, and like, why is there a werewolf here? But like, could you come back really quick? Talk about Morgan.
Oh my god, Morgan. Fuck
Dude,
Morgan.
I knew she's bad news. Like, the second she was like, I was just trying to do this to impress you and blah blah blah. And like, it was weird timing, like, I'll admit that, but like, why, first of all, why are you in this abandoned home? Like, that didn't track. And they were just like, yeah, that makes sense that you would, shack up in this abandoned house and like put a glamour on it to make it look all nice and stuff. It's like, no, that still doesn't really make sense. And it's also like, and someone just left all these magical objects like in the attic.
Yeah,
that also doesn't make any sense.
It was really sus. And also, one thing that I feel like we never really, like, the book didn't really justify was that both times when she was inviting Wells and Gwen, she was like heavily like laying the flirt on with both of them. And they didn't think like that was shady either. Right. They even like kind of acknowledged that she was flirting with them. Right. And then we just kind of like move on. And like, that's shady behavior.
And so it's like, I get why she was doing it with Gwen because she wanted to steal her power and stuff, but was she gonna try to do that to Wells too? Like,
no,
I guess
we
I'm
just never really
revisited
that. The author just kind of forgot she said
and
that.
And also, it took such a dark turn there at the end.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, hey, follow me to my car. I need help with something. And like, I knew the second she was like, maybe you can come over next week and help me clean out this attic. I was like, oh, she's going to get kidnapped for sure. And then she's like, follow me to my car. And I'm like, oh, now she's going to get kidnapped for sure. And then she was. And like, we're so sorry. We're going to have to stab you with this sacrificial dagger and drain all of your blood. Like, and I'm like, where are we?
Can we just like,
I'm sorry. I was having a good time here. That got spooky.
I feel like the motivations were a little bit weak too for this storyline. Like, why would they come back to Graves Glen? I thought that was weird because like they literally got, expelled from the college or whatever. Wouldn't you get like found out that you're evil?
Yeah, especially because they killed another student.
Yes. Wouldn't whoever's like, the dean of the college or whatever, if all of a sudden Morgan and her cronies are back in Graves Glen and they've now sacrificed Gwen to like take over Graves Glen, wouldn't the dean be like, these people are evil and they literally just murdered Gwen?
Remember when they murdered someone and then they just did it again?
So I'm like, what's the longevity of this plan?
Motivation was that they were going to like take over everything, but it's like, they aren't going to let you just do that.
I know. And there's like, what, 4 of them? Total, like I can't remember how many of them there are total of like the evil people.
5, yeah.
So it's like there's enough witches in Graves Glen. Like the whole thing is there's a bunch of witches here,
right?
Like they'll just destroy your asses.
Like, even though there's 5 of you, like, surely, like, the rest of them can take you down.
I know, like, there has to be, like, at least, like, 50 witches in Gravesglen at any given moment. So I just don't think they thought that through.
Yeah, that, I don't know, that seemed like a really weak plot point.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about the storyline.
And then Simon, God, because I thought Simon was maybe gonna have a redemption arc.
Me for a loop. I had forgotten all about him.
Yeah, and it's like, oh no, he's doubling down. Like he is actually very evil.
And like, oh, what pissed me off so bad was that like poor Wells is gonna have like he has a whole complex from this. Like he thought his father was just getting old and nostalgic and like wanted him to fly the nest and stuff. And I was like, that's really nice. But then I'm like, no, it's Simon. Like,
yeah.
No. So whenever he gets back and his dad's like, oh, you figured that out pretty quick. Wells was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, you would never do something like that. And he was like, oh, I absolutely would. Like, and I did. And I do it again.
And I do it again. Yeah, he's evil. Fuck him.
So evil. And I'm really interested to see what happens with Bowen too, because Bowen's like, don't worry, guys, I'll take care of it. And we're like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, maybe I will read the third book.
Because he has like a small armory in his like cabin in the woods. And so
I think like what Bowen should do is drain his dad's power, take it for himself, and then murder his dad. I don't know, just spitballing here.
I hope he does.
So moving on to some thoughts and concerns. We both feel this way, as if the intro to the book was a little bit too similar. There's a couple things in the plot that we didn't like because they were like too similar to the first book. So for us, like what's frustrating about the like flashback at the beginning is not only is it similar to the first book, but it feels wholly unnecessary for the second book because it doesn't actually affect the storyline at all. Like they have this flashback moment. Gwen remembers like in college, like one time he came in and like fixed this thing that she did wrong in class and it like embarrassed her. And so she hates him. And he like literally like they've never even introduced themselves to each other. Like they don't know each other. And in fact, like he doesn't realize that like he had a crush on her back then but didn't even know it was her, and then it just never even like filled in the story.
And so it's like they're sleeping together or whatever, and he like when he says that she like smiles all big, she's like, haha, I've got this great secret, and I'm like, oh, she's gonna tell him, and then she just doesn't, and then it was brought up again and she still didn't tell him, and so I'm like, what was the point of that?
That's just so weird.
That was just sloppy writing, I think.
Yeah, I just don't understand like why you wrote it like that. Also, just it's so weird that she had beef with him in the first place from what happened in college, because he didn't do anything malicious. Like he literally was just
she fucked around with a spell she wasn't supposed to be doing, and it caused an issue, and then he was happening like to walk by and fixed it, and then she was like, this dick.
Yeah, because like, people were literally like screaming in your class because you made like a little dragon or some shit.
I'm sorry.
Like she actually made something that was trying to attack people, and she was like mad that he blew it up.
She didn't even have it like remotely under control, but she's like, don't worry guys, I got this. And then she did not have it. She didn't got it.
And then she held a grudge for a fucking decade. Hated that.
Yeah, that's petty. Once again, I didn't love the intimate scenes. I just don't understand like why some rom-com authors like don't dive deep here, because it's like she set it up to be really, really nice, and like it could have been really well written, but it was pretty much a fade to black. Like,
yeah, the only thing that makes it not a fade to black is that it does technically explain to you what happened, but it's in zero detail. It's in like 2 sentences. It's like, and then we had sex and
I sat on his face, and yeah.
It gives me whiplash though, because it's like it's this nice like build up,
it's
like a detailed
and
like written.
They're dirty talking, they're doing all this stuff, and then when it actually comes down to it, and they're like, and that was it, and I'm like,
that was that, and we're done. I also didn't love like with the first book too. I was not a fan of the ending, but with this one even more so, it felt like kind of chaotic and forced.
Yeah.
It was just like there was so much going on and like her powers were gone, but then all of a sudden she just like had access to her powers again for no reason. So I just think that that's kind of silly. Like it comes off as cheesy to just have everything like work for no reason. But I understand this is a rom-com, so it is a little bit cheesy and
it wasn't like over the top cheesy. It wasn't like unbearable, but it did just seem like maybe she was on like a deadline to turn this book in.
Yeah.
And they're like, we need these chapters like yesterday. And she was like, all right, let me just whip something up really quick. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, it's like she just chugged a couple coffees and just like sat down and printed out. It's like it's reading like my assignments that I did the night before.
It's like the first half of it's like decently thought out. And then the ending, it's like, I don't give a fuck at this point. I just need that C.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100%. Except I would give this one like a B minus.
It wasn't bad. Like she was good at like writing under pressure.
For sure. Like she pulled it off.
I did like the rivals to lovers storyline a little better than I'm not a second chance girly. Like I don't care for a second chance romance ever.
Agreed.
The one caveat to that is A Happy Place by Emily Henry.
Oh my god. Yeah. that one converted me
exception.
sort of.
I love a good rivals to lovers though, because it's like a healthy like competition. It was kind of toxic, but it's like, I don't know, it's just different. It just hits different because there's like some preconceived notions because she knew him like 10 years ago and whatever, but they weren't like intimate, they weren't lovers, they didn't know anything about each other. And so
this book could have been the exact same thing if they just took that part out. And that's kind of why I was bothered by that even being in there, because I'm like, don't try to force like a second chance on me because I don't even like it.
I don't even want it.
And it's really like unnecessary. But yes, I agree. I like this storyline better.
Yes. I think the supporting characters in this story were way better. And also just the name Llewellyn is stupid.
It's really silly sounding, but the nickname Wells is very cute.
And I'm sorry if that's a family name for anybody, but it's Listen, a bad one.
It's probably just a cultural difference, but it sounds like a dorky name in the good old US of A. So I apologize, but it sounds, whenever she calls him Esquire,
that's hilarious.
That's hilarious to me because literally, his name just sounds as dorky as Esquire. So I get why she calls him that.
Oh, and one more thing I did absolutely just freaking adore in this book is freaking Sir Percival.
He gets even better. The fact that
Sir Percival is
they call him babe. Tricks. I was shook.
She calls him Esquire, and it just warms my little heart.
Esquire, and he calls Reese Dickbag.
I know. I love Sir Percival so much.
Sir Percival's good boy.
He says, "Happy Halloween,
Happy Halloween, treat."
He's so cute.
He's such a good boy.
Oh man, that cat makes it all worth it. I do it for him.
Yeah, actually, that was my favorite part of both of these books.
So we don't really have, like, since it was such a short book, we don't have a ton of discussion questions. And by a ton, I mean, we have one discussion question.
I think it's kind of a good, like, general question that we could talk about for a minute.
Since we've been doing so many rom-coms recently, which is a little different than how we normally do it this time of year. One thing we've noticed is that there feels like there's a general formula for writing a rom-com book. So what do you think the formula for a well-crafted rom-com would be?
Okay. So, me personally, if I'm reading a rom-com, I want it to include, because I guess this is also just personal preference, my favorite trope is usually enemies to lovers.
Sure.
So usually, for me, I want there to be like initially some sort of conflict, like right off the bat between these people. Okay. Like, I don't know if they need to be like rivals, like these two had like, rival businesses. That's kind of fun. I do like that. But there needs to be some sort of rivalry between them to start off with. That's step number 1 for me.
Okay.
Step number 2 is it needs to be set in a small town. Like for a rom-com to like really hit, it needs to be set in a small town. That's just a me thing.
Okay, I don't personally like that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I do get that.
Yeah, and I think that just goes back to like my like Hallmark style preference.
And I don't really like Hallmark.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong, I totally would read a rom-com if it was set in like a city. I'm just saying, like, the perfect formioli for me, the ravioli formioli is in a small town. So we had a Halloween party last night, and I was dressed as Mr. Krabs.
And it was really cute.
So moving on from that, because we disagree, we'll just say the setting can be anywhere.
Sure.
But next step is there needs to be something that causes forced proximity.
Yeah.
And whether that be they need to like solve a problem together, whatever, they need to be forced proximity. Maybe they have to live together somehow, some way. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but they need to be forced together.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there needs to be like something that like really pushes them into each other's arms. Like, I don't know, like a good like one bed trope if possible. Yeah. That would be perfect. But like if it's not a one bed thing and they
something like that.
Yeah, they'll get together. And then after they get together for the first time, there needs to be some sort of like, oh, no, we can't. Like there has to be there has to be like, oh no, pull it back, we can't. And it could be because of initial conflict. Yeah. But like or some sort of like nothing too crazy, but maybe like a miscommunication that's not unreasonable would be fine here.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of miscommunication in general, but I feel like if it's something that wouldn't make me like ruin the storyline, yeah, then I would accept a miscommunication here if it's small.
Okay.
And then of course at the end there's some sort of reconciliation.
Yeah.
For me that's the perfect formula.
Okay. So my favorite type of rom-com, I love a good best friends to lovers romance.
Oh, those are good too.
I've really been into those lately, and I love a good office place romance.
Oh, same.
I eat that shit up.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're talking office place romance, what I think the perfect formula is, obviously, again, kind of that rivals type thing. Love it when like they're pitted against each other. Like something's happened.
Yeah.
Like at the very beginning. So I'm almost thinking like Spanish Love Deception.
Yeah.
Where like they had some weird miscommunication at the beginning that has just caused them to absolutely despise each other. And so everything they do is just a competition.
But then when you find out he secretly has been down bad, though.
Yes. And I love that. And so, yeah, so you got to have like something happen at the beginning where they just have this deep-seated hatred for each other. And like, again, maybe like a forced proximity type thing where they get placed on like the same project or they have to go on like a business trip together.
Oh my God, they travel together?
Yes. Or like there's like an office competition and they have to like, I'd like stuff like that. Love that. So then they have to work together.
Yeah.
And they find out they're pretty compatible. But like they still hate each other.
And then they're at the office late one night.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That's right. Or they're at like an office work party or something like that. And like they get drunk and love that stuff. And so yeah, they get together and then like something will happen. Obviously, like maybe I don't know, like whatever project they're working on is coming to a close and they don't have to work with each other anymore. So they're never going to see each other again. So like, we better just call it quits.
Or if there's like a power dynamic and they're like, we can't do this.
Exactly. Or like someone's like, hey, I took a promotion like in a different city or state. And it's like, I'm moving now.
Yes.
And so like, that's like, it's not a miscommunication because no one likes those.
Yeah. No it's like a push and pull.
It's like a real thing that could happen.
Yeah.
That they have to figure out like adults is what I need. I need it to be like
I need it to not
very
feel
mature
like children.
No.
Yeah.
I need it to be like a very mature thing that happens where they have to make a very real decision. And then like one of them's going to move away, but then they realize they do love each other. And so one of them will follow their hearts.
Stop. They're about to get on the plane.
Yes. And like they show up at the airport.
They have already decided I can't get on this plane, but they turn around and then there they are there in the airport to convince them to stay.
And that's exactly what I need from that office place work romance.
Yes.
Now, if we're talking best friends to lovers,
because these are solid.
So I recently read one. And when I read a best friends to lovers, I need it to be where it's like so fucking platonic to start off with that you're like, these two could never love each other. And like slowly, one of them's going to realize that they've had feelings. Like what I'm kind of thinking of, it's by Megan Quinn. It's called A Long Time Coming. Okay. So it's in that series of like the brothers that I was talking to you about. Yes. I don't remember what the series is called. But yeah, basically like one of them has his best friend. They've been best friends since college. They met in college and decided they were going to be romantic.
Yeah.
Totally fine. Totally cool. But now she's getting married to this dude who's like a dick. And he's
I
like,
love a good, like,
and he's
stop
like,
the
I
wedding.
don't love this, but like I will support you
Mhm.
type thing. But then like he slowly starts realizing he's so against it because he's in love with her.
Oh my God.
But I think the thing that always makes that the best is that it's always like a surprise, like dominant side type thing. It's
Mhm.
like in this one, it's like he's this goofy, dorky, like kind person. But then like one night he gets drunk and
Yeah.
like is like asking her like what she knows about herself and like what she's not like getting from her fiance and like
Yeah.
all the ways that he could like please her type thing.
Oh my
And so like it's just like
God.
it's like a slippery slope now down into like he's opened this door
I
and now
have to
they
read
can't
this.
close it. Yeah, it just like flips a switch.
That's amazing. And like Aiden from window shopping.
Yes, no, that's exactly. Yeah, window shopping would be like another really good example of like that perfect mix between like a workplace romance
Hmm.
and almost like that best friends to lovers like type
Yeah.
vibe. And so I think you have to have those, but in the best friends to lovers, yeah, you have to have something where it's like they're getting married.
Hmm.
And that's the major conflict
Yeah,
here.
because it's like,
Because it's like you don't want them to cheat on their fiance, obviously,
right.
because that's trash.
Yeah.
But also, it's like
You
you're
want them to
rooting for the
realize.
best friend.
Yeah, that you want them to realize they have to call off this
Yes.
wedding.
And so the wedding and it's gonna get called off, but now they're in like this new dynamic where it's like I just, broke up with my fiance of 5 years. It's like I don't know if I'm ready to just jump into like this new relationship.
This
And
is giving also 13 going on 30.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love those.
Yeah, me too.
And I
You're
think
so
that's
right.
like a really well crafted rom-com.
Yeah. You know, the other best friends to lovers I've read that I liked, it was what made it really good was a fake dating trope.
Yeah.
So best friends fake
Mhm.
date and then realize they're actually in love.
Yes. That one that you're reading right now, the Gilroy clan, that
Mhm.
first one is like a best friends to lovers. And that one's so good. And so yeah, I think that would be like my ideal well-crafted rom-com.
Yeah.
Is that like now they're navigating this new relationship where one's single, one's been pining after the other,
Mhm.
and they have to figure out at what point is it tasteful to like be together.
Yeah. Which, like, to be honest,
It's whatever you deem is tasteful for yourself.
yeah, because when you think about it, if they've been best friends their entire lives, really they already know
Yes.
they love each
And
other.
it's like I love it when they realize they love each other because now we can skip all that bullshit where they're dating. Like,
yeah, like they already know everything that
no,
there
now
is to know
we're
about
gonna
each
get
other.
married
Yeah,
next
let's
week.
just leave. You know what?
You
Let's
already
just
paid for
use
this
the
wedding.
venue.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know what? You call off the wedding an hour before you're supposed to go out there.
Mhm.
But
And
since
I'll
all the
show up.
guests are already coming, you might as well and just be like,
Exactly.
surprise.
Yeah. So follow-up question is, do you feel like this story succeeded in following that formula?
There are
No.
some things that, no, I feel like there's some things that it did not, because again, we talked about the little flashback thing at the beginning, unnecessary.
It wasn't strong.
Especially because it never came full circle. Like, we never tied up any of the loose ends from that. And it very well could have just been like they met for the first time when Wells came to Graves Glen. Like, and it would have been fine.
3 seconds they met. Yeah.
So I would have preferred that. So I think what this book was doing, and same with the X-Hex, is I think it was trying to cram too many components into one. Because here's a good example of what we just did. Like, we described basically 3 different formulas with varying amounts of tropes
and you
in
can
them.
interchange them as needed.
Yeah, but it can't have everything.
No.
And I feel like these books do try to have everything. Like, it's just throwing anything that's hot and topical in and just trying to sell off of that.
Yeah, basically what we were given is like a whitewashed like rom-com.
Yeah,
it's like let me hit all of the points for what is popular.
Yeah,
and
like
see
what's trending on TikTok, and I'm gonna throw that together, and then you can like market it as whatever and every single buzzword, and it just became too busy. And there was the thing about these books is there's so much going on, but there's no detail.
Right. Yeah, no. It's very surface level.
Yeah.
And it could have been really good. Like, it could have been amazing if we had just maybe added 50 to 100 more pages worth of content.
And character development.
If we had like a very strong intro to why they're rivals, to, why she feels the way she does, because we don't really get that. I would have loved to see a little more like relationship building there, because I feel like they were just threw themselves at each other is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because once they realized there was physical chemistry, then that's fine for you to hook up before you fall in love. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But then don't tell me that, oh, we love each other because we have physical chemistry. Like, no.
No, you don't know each other like that.
That's not the same thing.
And it can't be, because she's like, the argument for that was so stupid. He's like, I was in love with this girl with purple hair. And it's like, you weren't, though, because you didn't even know it was her.
You didn't even know her name.
And so that felt like a very weak argument.
Yeah, that was really stupid.
So yeah, the whole thing, like, it wasn't fully like fleshed out.
Because it was trying to do too much.
Yeah, it was doing too much.
And that's okay. I mean,
it was still cute, though.
Yeah, I still was entertained, and
I'm trying to come for this author, and I feel like we have the last couple of weeks.
Yes, I 100%, because again, at the end of last episode, we were like, if you love hocus pocus type vibes, you love a cute little rom-com, this is the perfect
quirky
book for you.
Female character, and this is your book.
Yeah. Like, this book is perfect for that. And so I want to make sure we're not discrediting it.
It's just like, if you were looking for something that has like substance to it,
yeah,
this may have missed the mark a little bit.
Yeah, these are like just quick little like reads that you can do and not put a whole lot of like, I guess,
you
like,
don't even
effort.
Have to think about it when you're reading.
Yeah.
Which sounds bad, but
it sounds bad, but I don't mean that in a bad way at all. Because trust me, I read so much substanceless literature.
Yeah, it's like we've been reading nothing but monster smut for the last like 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was for research. I mean, but also for entertainment.
Also, yeah.
But
so it's okay to read.
Yeah. Oh,
fluff.
We are queens of reading fluff, because hey, we got to meet our reading goals somehow.
Listen, I got 30 books that I have to finish.
We can't be reading 100 fantasy books that are 700 pages.
I can't do that. I need these 200-page books.
Yeah, I need some novellas thrown in too. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to our Halloween episodes this year. Join us next week. We are going to be discussing Thanksgiving themed books that we found.
We have found some good ones, I'll tell you what.
So we'll be kicking off November with that.
Yeah, it's turkey season, baby. But yeah, it's going to be a fun, festive season from here on out, because then we're going to roll right into the holiday season with Christmas and whatever you celebrate.
Yeah, the winter holidays.
But yeah, so the week after, we're going to be discussing another Thanksgiving themed book, but we're diving a little bit deeper. It's called Thanksgiving with the Naughty Boss by J.Lo West.
Yeah, so we're excited for that one.
I'm very intrigued by this one.
So yeah, guys, go ahead, get started on Thanksgiving with the Naughty Boss. We'll talk to you next time, and as always,
let's get lit.